Why, hello everybody, and welcome back. I'm Random Randy. Thanks for tuning in. Whether you're on the pod feed or the YouTube, I appreciate you coming in, stopping in, spending your time here with me. And so today we've got an interesting thought, and this kind of ties into a lot of things that I've been kind of talking about. When I say larger humanity or larger people, there's something going around that giants, are maybe behind the strings, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, rather. And I think it's a possibility. There's a lot of nods to this thought, in several places. And one, just like usual, we'll take a look at is on a blog called Stolen History. And the idea is essentially our ancient Romans engineering and really kind of enslaving us. So it's an incredible thought, right? And it's one that no one really wants to have, to be quite honest. But there are some symbolic kind of nods to things like the toga, for example. And if you don't know what the toga is, let's take a look and we'll show you. A toga is a kind of the Roman standard, right? So you got the toga. Now, does just because George Washington is wearing a toga, does that mean that he's a giant Roman? I at this point, possibilities are a lot of fun, and I think that all of us enjoy a good possibility, and this is one of those. It's interesting. We see this transition, something happened. We all know that something happened around these times, the 16, 17, and 1800s, that there was a drastic change in, should we call it, ownership, right? And we do see nods to this, kind of in the new mainstream narrative, the Anunnaki narrative of larger humanoid types basically creating us for a purpose. So are they really telling us the truth? Is the question. Are they telling us the truth through the stories, that we're being essentially fed? Now, here's an interesting thing. When you look at the back of your dollar bill, you look at the courthouse downtown, you look at anything that has to do with government, it has this Roman feel to it, very Roman, very classical feel. You go to some libraries and they're, decked out with pillars in the front door. Your average bank sometimes will have the Romanesque pillars right there in the front, of course, tying into, Masonic influence, right? But what is that? What is that? Where did it come from? Who handed it down to us? You know what I mean? What is going on there? Um, and why, furthermore, why are giants so, or larger people, just a different humanity, that maybe thinks differently than we do, has a different set of morals and integrities and things than we currently do? Maybe this is the ideal that we're shooting for, are these larger people, because we don't want to be the ones doing all the work, right? And is that why the drive for technology? It simply carries on that we do not want to do the work, much like these folks did not like to do the work. And so we delegate it to the next thing down, which in our case is actually robotics and things. So that's the thought here, and we're going to take a look at some toga wearing people. We've got Peter the Great, 1672 to 1725. So these are the names given to, we're going to call them entities for now, to these entities in history, right? Um, Much like if you watch today's current politics on TV, you don't know if you're getting CGI Biden or what's going on. So, you know, how easy would it have been in the past where the only way of passing information along is by mouth, by like presentation? In a church, maybe you would have somebody speak and tell you the current events for the week. You might get books at the library, but those, of course, are going to be curated by somebody, right? And what purpose does that somebody have? And also, would these people have even had to have existed to get the jobs done that they did? Or could just the idea of these people get the jobs done. So that opens up this whole other possibility that these people never existed, and these are mind thought forms, right, or egregores. It's a possibility. You know what I mean? People are motivated for a lot of different reasons, and they find motivation in the ideas that maybe Peter the Great or George Washington. Oh yes, Peter the Great. By the way, his last name is Romanov, right? And so these would be the people that stomped out Tartaria, apparently, supposedly. Okay. So this is the idea that wiped out Tartaria. This is the idea that reformed the United States. And I say reformed for a very specific reason. Napoleon, the idea that transformed France. These are all the futurist ideas in their areas for the same end game. And what end game could that be, you ask? Uh, well, that's the interesting thing. Throughout history, throughout time, what do we see? We see smaller people beneath larger people in paintings, rock carvings, all kinds of things. Now, some interesting stuff. We're talking, about uh, Ubi Cologne abounds in historical associations. So, in relatively current times, in printing times, people are still wearing togas. Okay, people are still wearing togas, and the name Rome is thrown around everywhere. I will include links to these for you guys. Okay, so is the United States and the current government systems actually just Rome? And what is Rome for that matter? Is it another idea, another thought form, or is it something different? That's the real question. That would make sense as to why the idea and the thought of giants is been relegated to only be discussed as if they are gods. It's the only time you really hear about it, unless you hear about giants of a million years ago. You know, that's the only time that you hear about it. But and think about the size of a lot of this stuff in our history here. Look at the size of this monument. Look at the size of the monument that has Lincoln on it, guys. Look at how tall Lincoln's portrayed to be anyway. Okay. So, I don't think it's a far stretch to think that there weren't larger people here. It really seems like there were. And, if there were, why would they want to do all the meaningless crap that we're doing? I don't think they would. I don't think they would. We are now able to develop technology for them, if that's the case, or for these gods. But what if we are the technology of these gods, or of the gods, or of our founding fathers, the product of our founding father? We're definitely the product, guys, under maritime law, definitely the product. Why is that? Why is maritime law in play? This is one solution to that question, one answer, and that is that these are the captains of the ship. You know, uh, Maybe in the past we thought of them as Martians. Maybe they've had to come in and point us in a futuristic direction in order for us to create things for them. I'm just saying it's a possibility. There's some interesting motivations humanity has. You know, who knows? It's crazy. It's crazy world out there. You know, like I don't know anybody that's ever met George Washington or that his family has. Shoot, I can't even find anybody that can actually, like, by documentation through their own family, prove where they came from. It's all ancestry and all this other stuff, and it all points back to these same groups. Like everybody that I've talked to is somehow related to Peter the this, or Conan the Bar. No, no, but you get the point, right? And now we find out that they're selling all the DNA, or have given it basically to other, entities or groups. Why would that be okay? Well, because if we're a product in the first place, then whatever we produce is a product. So whether you want to believe it or not, we are in a form of slavery. Were we engineered to be slaves? That's the question. Is that what's being told to us through symbols, things like the toga, things like the words, Your Highness, right? Look at Alexander. Like, look at this. This is how they're all portrayed. If a giant person came down and said hello, like, or came over wherever they happen to be, because I feel like they still exist. If they came over all decked out in their armor with their fucking toga on, excuse my language, but dude, people would bow. People would bow down. All right. So maybe people have in the past. And this is just evidence of Roman monuments to non-Roman individuals. Okay. So, and we've got kind of more of this. Marcus Aurelius at a sacrificial ceremony in the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus in the background, 121 AD to 180 AD. Now, this is when you would expect to see togas, but what's with the bullheaded guy back here? Another interesting thing, right? But we have smaller people. They're about half the size. And dude, you know how big dudes like little chicks nowadays. Imagine this, right? How little chicks love big dudes. Yep. You know? So they're out there. There's a lot of images out there. And this is a thread on stolen history. So they're probably more posted down in the comments. But I mean, this idea is floating around for a reason, but is it revelation of the method? That's the question. All right. When you hear the word Your Highness or Your Majesty, it does beg the question, were they really higher than us? Are we just looking up? Was that the natural thing to say? It's just wild, right? So, and there's some crazy interesting threads on giants of Egypt, Chaldea. I mean, dude, it goes on and on and on. And we definitely see it in the Egyptian stuff, you know what I mean? And the Sumerian stuff. We see some weird stuff going on. You know what I mean? Like strange. Like they're saying those are monkeys, but they look weird, dude. They look half human to me. But I'm probably getting off track with this. But you see how fun it is to just ride these threads out, see where they go. So here's a better idea. That shows the smaller people. This is a much larger person. Seems to be crafting the sky. So that's amazing in itself. You know what I mean? So if you imagine these things literally, like these gods and these like hierarchy or pyramid of gods, you have like the ones that craft the space that we're in, and then you have the ones that like come in and craft us and bring us up to the point where we are now, because it's said in mainstream that we're the product of a genetic manipulation at some point. Okay. So even if we're not like being lorded over, being like whipped like slaves, I mean, but the financial system does tend to whip us when we're not doing our part. Right. So it's just interesting stuff, man. And gosh, this could probably go on and on because there's so much evidence of smaller, larger people, and like look at how all of these people are like diligently defending these two large people. You know what I mean? Hold them in high regard. And I think we still would today. I think we still would today. I think we do hold large, tall people in high regard today. Look at the NBA. We've created like this own place where these folks can thrive. Are they the genetic offspring of larger people? I don't know. It's a possibility though, right? Like maybe we're all a lot of different types of people, and over time we've just kind of blended together to make one kind of uniform mass of diversity, you know. So, and these are just some images that show the larger smaller people connection here, and it's everywhere. You got a priest, he's like praying to these guys or whatever, some people farming for them and stuff. Oh man, and it gets crazy when you get into the fascistes. Now these, oh man, it's interesting. This symbol has its own rabbit hole, and we'll have to go there sometime. But what is this dude carrying? What is that dude carrying, man? So You know what I mean? Are these lamps? Like, what's going on here? Where are they? What are they doing? Some tributes. But the fascies, there's a lot to that. But giants, guys, I know it's a weird subject and not everybody's down with it. But what if this was the inspiration? Maybe it's not currently the case, right? Maybe it's just not currently the case, but what if it was? What if it was up until very recently, Like very recently. And then like those people that were like, dude, we want like we're so what if we're little, the whole little man syndrome like really takes center stage when you bring giants into the equation. What if the whole society was like, no more giants, like in English fairy tales, how they just fucking dominate them and destroyed them all. And maybe these beanstalks they talk about were these giant trees. Maybe we cut them down, guys. So you start opening these rabbit holes and it's just like, dude, it comes back to a personal level at some point. So, the whole giant thing for me is amazing, and it's amazing that people are so quick to deny it or put it so far in the past and not see the pace at which things change. Over the last 100 years, we've went from analog zero to like freaking quantum digital, you know? So what do you think happened in the 100 years before that? You think it was just like a stagnant? You think the dark ages were really just like stagnant, that there was nobody waiting in the wings developing technology and being just genius? Because there are genius people out there, tons of them. You just don't see them because they're helping to run this thing that we are a part of. So it's wild. To the Tennessee Parthenon, I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard of people who have been there and who have said it looks like it's plastered over and everything. Blah blah blah. One thing I will notice, to the eye it looks a little curved, which is different supposedly. Supposedly it's not supposed to look curved to the eye, so that's weird. But anyway, the Parthenon in Nashville, in Central Park, Nashville. It was supposed to be, look at that, reproduction Athena. And there's another video out for you guys on the channel about Athena. Okay. Athena. Interesting. So, I mean, it all begins to tie together, guys. And is this a part of the thread? Is this a part of that string? Supposedly, this is 1897 constructed. Now, I don't doubt, guys. I got to be honest. I don't doubt that a lot of this stuff was tidied up. Look at this in the background. We got like a crane thing back here. So, I don't doubt that some of this may be older than we're told. And, what may have happened is these larger people may have had all of these lands and they might have somewhere else to be. They might not need to run us anymore because they have the technology to do that for them. We don't need, look at what media does to people. Look at what information can do to lives and direct so many people. So as soon as the ability to kind of communicate across distance came around, like as soon as radio came around, you just see this crazy change in everything. And they say it came around in like the 1906 time, but that means, that means that it was around at least 50 to 100 years before that, right? So the stuff has been developed strategically to control us. Why? And by whom? By giants? We like to think that. You know what I mean? We really like to think it must have been giants, because it couldn't possibly be humanity, right? Look at this. Madeline Church. Wow. Built 1807. So, I mean, but either way, even if this was built in the 1800s, they're doing this around the world. This thing, this Rome. These toga wearers doing it around the world, the US, Paris, it's the same. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, you know what I mean? Look at this. It's the same. Some of it has the facade ripped out or whatever they did here. You could tell there was something there. Looks like there was much of something and it's gone now. You know how them giants like to paint their sex scenes, right? And all that stuff. So, you know what I mean? No, I mean, anyway, you know what always fascinates me about these arches is inside you have these like little interesting cymatic patterns, little roses and things. I wonder if you went in here with a device that put off a certain frequency, you just walk through to another place in time. That's my thought anyway. Imagination is key to living, guys. So have a little imagination. Imagine that we're not the biggest, most badass out and about in the universe, but we can be for ourselves. You know, we can be for ourselves. So, some hypothesis kind of summarized here: ancient Greek, Parthenon, Roman. So, any ancient structure kind of seems to have been built roughly the same time. The only difference is, this is an opinion, is the condition that the powers that be choose to keep them in. Right. Napoleon, Washington, Peter the Great, and their company, and Marcus Aurelius and his company, while traditionally separated by 1,000+ years, belong to the same spin of civilization. That's a good way to put it. A spin of civilization. I like that. And have placed much closer to each other on the time scale. Some of them could possibly have existed at the same time. They were the ones called Your Highness, Majesty, and such, due to their superior height, power, and abilities. Now, if you took a human and you doubled their size, brain capacity, everything, think about what that would do for intellect, for believe it or not, for psychic powers, for intuition. Like, we're only using a small part of it. Even if we were that big and only using a small part of our brain, dude, epic stuff. No wonder all this stuff is just so ornate and beautiful, right? If you had twice the brainage, you know what I mean? Twice the brain, twice the heart, twice the soul, twice everything. I don't think they had ADD back then, guys. It really doesn't look like it. So these were the proverbial giants on whose shoulders Mr. Newton once stood. So was Newton handed some information to then hand down? So we see these doors everywhere. Does that mean it's proof? No. And here's the other thing. Look at this nice checkerboard floor. We got the pillars on the sides. So we know that this is a Masonic influence here. Okay. But does that translate back to like Masonic giants? And is that part of the big secret? You know, is that the reason you'd want to be a Mason, to find out that their giants are real and they're just like living on their beautiful island out in, the Pacific Ocean that, we can't get to because airplanes only fly like certain, you know, paths? It's a thought, right? Anyway. So we see the size of the statue. Now, here's something I wanted to point out here briefly, guys. Look at this pose, right? Look at this pose. And we've got the same thing. So, you know what? I really wonder if Rome isn't transitioning itself, pivoting itself, because, to believe it or not, guys, like what's becoming the popular kind of opinion of the world is kind of a Luciferian thing. It is the pop. I say popular, like culturally popular. Okay, so relax if you're a different affiliation or whatever. But like this stuff's being pushed, dude. It's being pushed big time. Just like this stuff is being pushed. What if it's all the same agenda? You know, and like, yeah, that can be scary for some people. What if it's the same agenda? But like, what if it's just an agenda to get people to better themselves and to freaking work hard? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of lazy people, but like, if they didn't want people to work hard, I don't know. Why would they offer so many? I don't know. I feel like to some level, our size of humanity uh is a little bit slow, compared to the ethic of maybe a larger mm, society. I don't know. Um, and when I say these larger people, I don't think that they were all really huge. I think some of them were mostly just like 7 and 8 feet tall, just a head above our tallest people. And they either left or decided to stop commingling with us or something, or they just got completely commingled with us. Like who knows, right? But there's definitely an agenda in this Rome thing. You know what I mean? And then back with the fascists again and the two ball cane. Look, guys, come on. Look, you seen this? Like, dude, once you start to see this stuff, you cannot stop seeing it. It is everywhere. And this is a little bit different of a fascist. This has a sword wrapped to it and no axe in the top. And so it tells me that this is like a hidden weapon, right? A secret. It's covered up. You know what I mean? It's covered up. Wow. So it's crazy stuff, right? It's crazy stuff. Now, dude, look at these lightning rods. Imagine that. I wonder what they're plugged into. These are just some fun little digs, but we see the toga. You know what I mean, guys? See that toga. Why would George Washington be like painted as a Roman, Unless he was Roman. Unless this SPQ, meaning Senate and the people of. So look at, if we were to call it the Senate and the people of America, that's what we have, guys. How is it any different from the Roman Empire? I've got to ask everybody, how are we not under Roman control? Who cares what the tiny flag says that's, at your school and post office? How is this not Rome to people? How is it not Rome? How are we not raised by wolves, guys? The Senate and the people of Republic. Incredible, right? This is information pertaining to almost everywhere around the world. Paris, a republic. So, but what happened? What happened that this all had to be like become secret? You know what I mean? What happened that all of this Rome had to break apart and become the different like states and stuff that we see today? Now, there's another article, and it's on Montezuma. Was Montezuma, a Holy Roman Emperor? And we'll probably have to get into this sometime, but like, you look at the coat of arms for the Holy Roman Empire, and we've got Montezuma here. See what I'm saying? Like, this stuff just keeps going back. And you know what? He probably was a larger person too. It's wild, guys. It's wild. I know this went in like a weird direction with the Montezuma thing, but this double bird is is Rome, guys, and it pops up everywhere, and different versions of it, like black and gold. And then with an owl, a different bird is Tartaria, or with the griffin pointing the other direction is Tartaria. It's guys, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. So, so that's the question. What's going on? I think that these are some of the answers, pieces anyway. So this is known right here. The upper floor for the winter palace was for the serving slaves. Look at the size of the windows up here. The other were for the like royalty or the gods. So was there an entire society of large people? Did we take them out? Did they leave? Did they just give us everything? And see here, I've seen books like this at the library, guys. I have a post on my Instagram that shows this from like a year ago. I was blown away. I'm like, see, they're telling us, they're laughing at us. They're laughing at us, guys. Giants of the Republic. Like, they're just laughing at us. I wouldn't be surprised if the first several generations, of America, like the several presidents, several royalty, weren't of larger possible stature, or at least in league with whatever that previous civilization was. But there was a shift. You know what I mean? There's a shift, and if you look at like Masonic tendencies, it's to drive change and innovation. It's really to like to push people in a certain direction. Like that's the whole point of like all of that, you know. Now some will say like camaraderie and stuff. Sure, on like a personal level, yeah. But like the whole thing is to drive humanity as like its own giant entity in a certain direction. So is this real slavery? That's the question. The highness, their majesties, the giants, were they the true masters with knowledge and abilities to build all the architecture we still admire today? Is that why it rings with us? Do we know it was made by the gods, right? Uh and this goes so far as to say they were the gods and we were the slaves made in their likeness, but developmentally challenged. And I do tend to agree with that. I gotta say, I can agree with that. So, these are the questions, man. These are what's rattling around. There's some hidden truths in this stuff, in the whole Tartaria hidden history movement. There's some truth to this. Okay. And I've heard arguments about like the cathedrals and the old castles not being for large people because of the stairwells and some of the towers and turrets. But like if you were the large people and you just like lived here, why the fuck would you be in the turrets? You know what I mean? Why would you be out in these things? You would be living it up like in the mansion house or the underground freaking villa or whatever's going on, you know? So this is an interesting take. We may have been born in what's known or created or born in what's known as a dolmen, a portal tomb. Whoa. Okay, like that's strange. But like, are these representations for something? So that was like an interesting weird curve, like born in. You know, what if it is, just a symbol for something? It looks like the pi symbol to me. Kind of all do. So, we know what aristocracy is, aristocracy, sorry. Um, Rule of the best born. Okay. Now we still see, like the kings and stuff being large and many portrayals, especially, falling back again, guys, on anime. There's this anime called Ranking of Kings, and the king is dying, right? Like of some illness. And his son is a regular person, and he is obviously a king and a larger person. And you know, it's interesting because I wonder if this is like a nod. You know what I mean? Like we're being told through video and through movies and things like this, some pieces of the past. And it's interesting, dude. It's so interesting. There it is right there. Ranking of the Kings. Okay. And I recommend it. I think it's a good little show. It was fun. Um, but like further on the giant subject. Now, here's what it kind of looks like, and I got to agree with this here a little bit. Uh, Sometime as late as the mid 19th century, some of the gods were still in existence, but something happened. And perhaps, I don't know about this. I don't think we could have successfully revolted. I think maybe we were led to believe we won or something weird, something like plot twist, like, M. Night Shyamalan kind of like thing, you know? And the slaves revolted against the master, won the global war. Um, I don't know about that, but I do think that there was like a conflict of societies of some kind, like whether we like won or like they retreated to like a stronghold or something, and like that's why there's the ice wall, or you know what I mean? Like there's so many different options that could happen, but we have all these like cities with massive infrastructure that like need World War I, World War II to facilitate destroying it all. You know, and this stuff was grand, beautiful, ornate cities everywhere, like so many places. And like here's some examples: Venice, India, Toronto, Moscow, St. Petersburg, on and on, Chicago. I mean, on it goes on and on, guys. So, like, did they just like decide to leave? Like, how would we, as a smaller, rebel, were what we call the rebels and like the Confederation and stuff? Were those the giants? And we're just twisting it up? Did they decide to let us feel like we've won so that we could carry on and develop different things like with them away from us? With them, would we be like leaning too hard on them for answers to our questions and therefore like not develop our own stuff? I mean, look what we're developing today, guys. Cloning's crazy. But here's the other thing. Like, I talk about this a little bit on the Artemis uh thing, video that I put out. And what is this is the theory though. Once the war with the gods was over, the children could still be engineered. Uh this is, the opinion how all of these children were explained. And it would make sense to me, guys. It would so make sense. And there's like whispers and stuff in the conspiracy world about everything like clones, and how all of Hollywood is like clones, and like maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, and like, do they even consider most of us human? Or are we all? Like, what if they did keep it under 500,000? That's all the like actual humans there are. Because I don't know about you guys. I've seen people like, especially out here in the Midwest, dude. And yeah, some would say they're just all related, but dude, they look exactly the same. And they're like living like freaking 50 miles apart and have never met, or, across the state. Or I see somebody out here that looks exactly like somebody I knew all the way across the United States. So it's like, it's just weird, it's weird. But off of that point, like we see nods to this: large people, small people, right? Large person, small people. um I think maybe we're being shown some things. Like, we've even got some possible books of giants. These are like the tales, of who. Anyway, Amerigo Vespucci apparently tells of giant natives. Interesting, right? I don't know, it's another character that deserves a closer look, I'm sure. But you see, and that maybe these giants were the ones that they called savages because they wore togas and just were chilling, you know, just living because they had people to work for them to some degree. And maybe, yes, maybe we did revolt, or maybe we decided we wanted more than our whatever we had before, area of land. We do seem to be this kind of conquering manifest destiny. Like, what if that manifest destiny was a human idea, knowing full well that we were like genetically engineered, and we're like, listen, we were created for a purpose, yo, let's do this. How pumped people could get. You get them in the locker room, you're like, yeah, 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 let's go. So you get people, yeah, let's go. Yeah, you probably could overthrow giants who were only living at the peak of analog technology. Probably, it seems like it. Analog technology, in line with the planet and the energies and all this stuff, but analog nonetheless. I'm telling you guys that the step to digital is a mind-blowing thing. Quantum computing and all of this stuff, that is the next dimension inward, is wild stuff. But so we see this everywhere: large people, large natives with the headdress, could be known as Tartarian, and the kind of toga-esque thing, right? And then like humanity was like, okay, we got to develop our own clothes and look different than these guys. And maybe all the people were going bald because of like the subtle electronics that all these large guys were using, because it was flowing through the air everywhere. If they were using that ether thing going on, Maybe that's why like the humans were going bald. Maybe the humans were the ones working on the stuff. Maybe we were given the knowledge to maintain, upkeep everything, all of these pieces of this very large earth machine that these giant people had built. Maybe we still are maintaining it to a certain extent, and if these giant people didn't build a lot of this earth machine, maybe they were the next version down from the ones that did. And perhaps, and I know this is a fringe thought for people, but perhaps, there are like petrified titans, and perhaps the things that have happened before here are here right underneath our feet all along. So many different things, so many different versions, societies. Clearly, there was some medieval society at some point, but was it in the same order we're being told? That's the question, really. So, some of the evidence of giants, it's interesting, right? You see the smaller top floors, larger bottom floors, smaller top floors. Maybe they did just make room for us in their society, and we got sick of it. Look at that dude; he's pretty big. It's a valid question, when you look at the size of some of these places. And yes, we choose what to take through time with us, and to some degree, we are carrying the giant mythos through time, even if most people think that it's just in stories or fairy tales, it still is alive. And I think that that's important. It clearly was a part of our past, and it's just hard to know exactly what part it played. You know what I mean? And how long ago this really was. And to be quite honest, what if America was a land of giants and something happened to them? What if, like, the Black Plague wasn't us that died, that got sick? What if all the fear around germs and all this comes from these folks that no longer are here with us? What if we've reverse engineered everything and still are reverse engineering stuff? And it wasn't aliens, it was giants all along. Just a larger us. It's a wild thought, guys, but like, are you mad? Are you mad about like possibly being like the handiwork of just a larger people? Like, does that make you feel like it's less important, or like does it make you feel like less meaningful, I mean, like, does it make you feel like maybe like we're just clones or sub clones, or like what's going on there, right? Like, it's interesting. And we definitely all seem to have souls and unique personalities and thoughts. Like, was that the point? Like, were we created to have these unique thoughts and souls and experiences? Incredible stuff. It never made sense to me how any sword battling would actually happen like it does in the movies. That would be so exhausting to your average person nowadays. But if you were twice the stature with twice the strength, those kind of battles could happen. Maybe you healed twice as quickly. Then all of that medieval horse battle, spears and swords, it all starts to make sense. You know, all that those fantastic tales of great warriors, and like it's called in the Bible, men of renown. Like this stuff, dude. We see this stuff online, right? Like these same types of pictures and maps. And like in my mind, I'm just thinking they came from like a tabletop map that just rolls out like little, or a small book. But look, guys, this is what it's coming from. Some of it maybe. So like, why is it so scary or wrong to think that like all of this hasn't been handed to us and curated for us by like other, call them gods, like Hermes, right? Like Hermes is like the one that passes down all these teachings. Like we've already built the personage, like the personality, the personification of it. Is this why? Is this like the big secret? The big secret. Like most famous like manuscript in history. Like, dude, some of these giant book things, they look like their own lithograph or their own like regular like printing. Like this was not, dude. Like they had a 3D printer, dude. That etched these things for mass printing. Had to have, had to have, and we just reverse engineered all this stuff. But I think it gets to a point like now. Look at that. That's an amazing picture. I gotta save that. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, I'm just bringing you along on the journey with me. I think it's important though. It's fun. But yeah, I mean, look at that, dude. Look at that place. Just imagine, right? And they would have had like wood flooring in some of their and just amazing levels to it all. There's a lot of like visualizations of ruins like this though. Like where did they go? What happened to them? How long did we fight them? Like what why is that history all lost? I think it might be lost, guys, because they won after all. Dude, if we won, we would be all about talking about it. Come on. Definitely would be all about talking about it. But we're not. It's all being hidden. It's all being covered up. It's all being relegated to the fringe of the internet, you know? So I mean they existed, guys, recently even. Maybe they got sick of us rebelling. They're like, listen, they can't really rebel against us if we're not here, right? Like, look at this. Was George Washington a giant? A giant among mice or whatever it's of ants, whatever. Are these the Imperials? Is this the secret? Mauritanian giants? See, like, look at dude, there were different versions. Why would we draw? I mean, if not, why would we draw all this stuff? Why would this be a thing? They clearly were around, and I don't think all of these photos could be doctored. These people are supposedly documented to have existed. But like when we see the shift in society, the change of direction to like futuristic humanist, maybe that took them leaving. Maybe that took them going elsewhere or something, letting us be to do whatever our thing is. And like look at the stuff that we've developed. Maybe it's different than the stuff they have developed, or at a minimum, smaller, right? At a minimum, smaller. And maybe that was the key. That's wild, dude. And a lot of them exist for real. Like these can't all be doctored. Maybe this one was a little, who knows? Look at that. So maybe not all the giant parts are disappeared. That's incredible. Now I'm inclined to think that like this larger stuff that was like preserved or something somehow might be a little older than this. I mean, amazing, right? Like imagine how statues look, how they always look more full bodied. And we really can't develop this way. Like we're not the same proportions, we're just not. Like we're in the image of these larger folks, sure, but we're just not the same proportions. And what if they dressed like gods and goddesses and they just loved being revered by us? Why would they leave, you ask? I think maybe we got too out of control or there was just too many of us, but they clearly wanted more of us. They wouldn't have rolled out all these things and produced everybody. Either that or, they won and they got rid of like the genetic lines that were being combative and like installed new ones through the orphan trains and training and stuff and, indoctrination. So that's a thought. Giants. This painting thing also has dragons on the other side. It's interesting. Maybe the dragons are there to make the giants look silly, or maybe the giants are there to make the dragons look silly. You know what I mean? Well, I think that's going to be close to it. Of course, weapons like we were looking at, some of which later became mounted weapons. The punt gun, supposedly used for duck and mounted to a boat, and then later on, duck. This is a duck hunting rifle, guys. You really think so? I don't know, dude. This is looking pretty gummy and like old to me. This is today's duck hunting shotguns, the biggest one. Look at this, but still nowhere near the size of what we're talking about there. Bladed weapons, books, cellos, and you see like, dude, this dude would just play like a guitar, like it's no problem. Boom, 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 boom. So, it just makes me wonder, like, why did this have to change? What happened? What happened that like we couldn't coexist anymore? Or was it just like a push for us to do our own thing? So that's kind of the question, guys. That's definitely the question. And I'm probably gonna wrap it up here shortly. But just, keep this stuff in mind. Like, dude, the world that we see when we have these questions makes a lot of sense if you're looking at just larger people. Because not only would they have been larger, but their technology would have been massive. To have books this size, think about how big your technology is going to be and think about how much more productive that technology is going to be than like what we have, especially for like mining and stuff like that. So did they get to the point where like it was like not economical for them to like lord over us, or they obtained as much material as they needed and just left, or built their own like utopia, like utopian society, often like what maybe still is Lemuria or Atlantis or whatever, or like what if, here we go, what if the Americas are Atlantis, and Atlantis was a legit thing just a few hundred years ago, but for some reason like they bounced, or like 1,000 years ago, but they bounced out, they left. I just wonder why they left. Is this the pattern? You know what I mean? Like, is this the process of progress? And are we going to do the same thing to our creations? Things like genetically engineered people, which are going to be a thing, it seems. If at minimum, cyborg people, or just general AI robots. Are we creating these things to serve the same purpose we are, so that we can like go wherever this paradise is, or so we can build our own utopia on Mars or whatever? And I know that doesn't agree with a lot of flat earth theorists and whatever, but think about it this way: if you've ever played Terraria, or something like that, they have different biomes and they're all stacked on top of each other. Does that really apply to our life? Are there different frequencies, different vibratory levels? Had they just found their key? Had they found their key, right? Um, and is the key like a personal thing? Dude, on that note, like, was spontaneous combustion part of the process of people finding their key? QI, chi, right? Their key to this unknown door. So that's a pretty wild rant and a pretty good place to like leave off on. And I hope you enjoyed the rant here today. And again, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that this information finds you well, and you have a great rest of whatever it is for you, morning, evening, noon, or night. And we'll see you next time.